Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the Book of Nook Show. My name is Kyle Colley and this is a special episode of Author Talks Podcast, a podcast to hear the behind the scenes stories, ideas, and writing journeys of authors. This episode is brought to you by Bookem, the Book Community's new and best way to host dynamic online book clubs. Download the app and start your book club today at www.bookemapp.com. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. My guest today is the phenomenal Marc Avery. Marc is the Philly native and the author of the books Redemption Lost and his latest crime fiction, Discipline. He is a writer, a world builder, a bookworm, a crime novelist, and a taco enthusiast. Marc, welcome to the Author Talks podcast.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk a little bit about your book and specifically about the book tour. Like, how's everything been? How's everything going? And just getting the word out and some of those early feedback on the book.
So it's always like, and you always have an idea of how you want stuff to go. So when I was putting together the book tour, I had no idea where I was going to go because it was all based on who would accept me, who would say yes to me doing a signing at their store. But so far, I'm super blessed, man. I had somebody start reading the book while I was still signing,
Okay.
and they got like halfway through by the time I was finished.
Ooh.
And like I just can't even put it in the words how cool, you know what I mean? Like they right there in the store reading. I wasn't even my son told me I wasn't even, paying attention. But I will say this though. Somebody asked me what would I classify a success as far as like an individual book signing. I said if one person come in the store and buy this book, because zero people would have zero was bad. If people would just walk by me and nobody buy nothing, I failed, right? I ain't even stopped nobody. But the fact that somebody was interested enough to look at the book and say, okay, I like this. They don't know me, remember. I'm gonna try this and pay my hard-earned money for it. So for me, that's a ultimate success for me.
Yeah, see, I love to hear that. And as you kind of saying, just from a reader's perspective, I was going through it quick too because I was telling you, it reminds me of like a French Connection type of film where you have like this, this cop and cat and mouse kind of game going on and people figuring out things. And then I was reading that some people kind of relating it to more of a like a lethal weapon or No Country for Old Men, kind of those spaces are just these type of films. So like when you think about that, even from when you're writing the characters, what were you trying to look for or what were you trying to pull out from it? And then yeah, talk to us a little bit about that when you're kind of starting this the writing journey for this.
So I think I have a villain problem because I always get mad when the villain loses. Like I was mad when Thanos lost. I was disappointed. I wanted him to win. Um, Still disappointed to this day. He was giving him the business, man. He lost, and it was disappointing. But I really wanted like an iconic villain, right?
Mm,
Somebody that's worthy of his adversary, right?
yeah.
And I guess at the root of everything, I just wanted a buddy cop film, man, in book form. That was it. That's what I wanted. That's what I hope that I put across because that's exactly what I wanted, a buddy cop movie in book form.
See, now that makes sense. And no, to your point about villains too, I really think about that a lot too, especially when you watch those films. The films that you draw the most to, or just books in general, or stories, I should say in general, is when the villain has as much of a case for their success as a hero does. Now the what how they're going about it is always going to be, the wrong way because it's the villain, but underneath it, the undergird of it, the villain's story that has that something that's relatable to it. You do start to kind of root for them just even a little bit. So I've noticed that a lot too. So when you're writing villains, how do you think about that? How do you make them a compelling villain where we say, okay, I can justify I know what they're doing is wrong, but I understand their motive.
I didn't, so I do a lot of research. I guess they would call me like analytical. So I'm like, what makes somebody do something? What would I do if I was in this position, right? Because you have to be your characters in some way. I was thinking about that the other day. So like, I wanted him to be fully formed. I didn't just want him to be like just a cliche, right? I wanted him to have purpose. And somebody said it could kind of be a psychological thriller because you are inside of his head at these certain points of the story, and you're like understanding like why he's doing it. It's not random, and um, he's it's just the craziest. It's just the craziest thing because he's fully formed, and I felt like if you could get him from beginning to the end, and that middle part means something, I
Yeah.
felt like he was striking emotion in the reader, or at least that's what I hoped they would do.
No, it makes sense. And then for those that are unfamiliar with the book, you just talk about what the overall premise is, kind of what sparked the idea for it, and yeah, somewhere in there, just so we can actually have, for people that don't know.
Yeah. I was like, what? Okay, so like, it basically is two detectives chasing a serial killer through Philadelphia who is dropping bodies at these historical landmarks, and he's kind of taunting the police when he's doing this, and then their cat and mouse. Will they catch him? Won't they catch him? Will they be victims of him? Is the like boat through that sea?
Yep.
That's kind of what the premise of it is.
Yeah, and speaking of discipline, set in Philly, that's your hometown. How did your familiarity with the city and and just in its influence on you kind of shape this story?
It so ironically enough, all of the locations mean something to me, right? So I used to work across the street from Rittenhouse Square. So I could see it from my desk. And I used to work same building directly next to Barnes and Noble. So it was like that was cool because I could look out and see stuff, but then go right to the bookstore next door. So like all City Hall, of course, whenever I would come home, I went to military school. So when I would come back home, and you'd be at City Hall, and then you see all of the buildings, William Penn, and all that stuff. So all these locales or how I am describing the stuff, I literally seen it, or I sat on the steps of an actual place that I'm describing.
Yep.
And even more than that, I went to a book signing for S.A. Cosby.
Okay.
I want to say it was either last week or the week before in Philly, right? I'm standing in Reading Terminal in Philly where they would have been standing in real life.
Mhm.
And it was like, it's so many people in that place, you can lose somebody.
Yep.
It's that tight in there.
Mhm.
So it means something to me, not only because it's where I'm from, but I've I've been there, so I can describe it because I literally walked through those passageways.
Yeah, it's cool because I stayed some time in Philly. It was almost, a little bit of time ago now, but I remember like you're writing about Rittenhouse Square. I'm like, I've been right there where that park is at. I know exactly what's going down
Yep.
right here. And as you're saying, even with Reading Terminal, that place, as you said, it's so easy to slip to the left, look to the right, and it's so busy of an area that now a criminal can get by and, live to fight another day too.
Also, too, a big word in crime fiction I've learned is plausibility. So I'll look, something to be has to have happened in real life so I can get an example, like how this criminal was at large for 2 straight years. So you're like, nope, this is a real actual thing. Or like I'll look up a corner store and I only need what it looks like in real life, and then I can make up however I want around the idea that it actually exists, but I don't have to say where in the city it is.
Mhm.
North Philadelphia is vast. As long as you know you can kind of be on that block, I don't necessarily have to say which block they're on, just that you are on a block that looks like blank. Enough for you to be in the story is kind of what I'm trying to go for.
Well, yeah, and to that point, how do you think about world building in a real city? Because again, you have these landmarks that people are familiar with, but how do you still make it this unique experience where we feel like we're right in Philly? How do you think about that as you're writing?
Are you familiar with Michael Connelly?
Michael Con. No, actually, are you talking is the basketball player or is it something else?
So he's like my north star of crime fiction, right?
Oh, okay.
When I go to the book signing
Oh, Michael
and you go to
Connelly. Okay, I know who you're talking about. Yeah. Okay.
news and noteworthy, right? In the beginning of the store, he right there, top left.
Yep.
Soon as you come in, right? So I think about his world building, and he's in his books are in Los Angeles,
Gotcha.
and he has a TV show called Bosch.
Mm.
So even though he has these real locales, it's still a fictional space in which he's operating in. So I'm like consciously thinking like, okay, here is where this is, which these locations are never going to move, and then I can put these places that I made up within the framework of the real life, but not straying too far away from the root of Philadelphia.
No, it makes sense. Talk to us a little bit about character, voice. What were some of the challenges did you face in writing these characters and these scenarios?
So, so remember earlier when I was like, you have to be these people.
Mm.
Like I'm sitting here, right where I'm sitting right now. I'm sitting here talking to myself, right? And I'm like, because there's a part where they're arguing,
Yeah.
right? So I have to argue with myself. What does he sound like versus when he's yelling? So one of them is older than the other one. I forget by how many years, but like I'm like argue against a younger version of myself versus how old I am now. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I'm getting their voices from. Then with the villain, I'm like, what do I want him to sound like? Do I want him to sound intelligent, inquisitive, worldly? You know what I mean? Like he knows X, Y, and Z. And then once I made the decision to have everybody, well, not everybody, but those three characters go back and forth and back and forth. That's how I was able to get their cadence because they're individualized by chapter head. So
Gotcha. And then do characters, how do you kind of, I guess for writers, how do you kind of avoid character voices blending? Because you know you're working with so many characters. How do you make sure like, all right, this person, discipline sounds like discipline. He's not
right,
trying to sound I forget Armstrong. He's not trying to sound like Armstrong.
right.
Like how do you make sure that they kind of are not taking up the same space?
With a character chart,
Okay.
here is here's him. Here's just kind of okay. This is how they would speak to each other, and this is how they would react. Kind of, and then not having so many voices that it would get jumbled. Where they're only technically four main characters if you're counting Armstrong too. So those three main guys, you kind of know when they're talking about like their characteristics. And I kind of want them to be distinct in this certain kind of way. But it can be tough. Like you said, things can get jumbled together. So I just try to keep it separate by writing notes. Like that's the best I can do to make sure that happens or doesn't happen.
Yeah, so maybe not. I don't want to give away all the information, because it is a crime movie. But book. Tell me a little bit about that beginning though, because you set a very specific frame for discipline in his world and where he comes from, right? What was the decision making there? And just in general, when you're writing these type of fiction, what are you trying to get readers to see from the beginning of the book that may come back into the book at a different time, or just how you think about setting the opening scene or sequence of a book?
A lot of stuff goes into that, a lot of thought process, right? So Discipline was a side character. His name wasn't Discipline, and he didn't have he was a side character, no significant role. And it's kind of like, you know how when Steve Urkel was going to be on Family Matters, he's going to be on one episode and he would leave. It was kind of like a almost like an underling, right? But then as time went on and years went on, he became more prominent. So I was like, man, I learned about Save the Cat, which is basically the premise of like you have to have something to connect the audience to that character. You
Yeah.
feel something for that character. If you notice, everybody has that.
Okay.
As soon as you meet them, connection. Aiden, him, Christian. Oh, this is what they do, or oh, this is their ideology, right? With him, I did not have their prologue before I signed my deal,
Mhm.
right? So it started chapter one, but they were like, you need some connective tissue to birth the idea of what he's come from.
Exactly.
Then I thought of that and said, you know what? This is the foundation of where this guy is from. And I feel like if people start from there, they'll continue to read it.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that really does set the frame because now you're sitting there. regardless of what he does next and what he goes through, you sit there and say, I understand what his trauma is, right? You understand where he comes from and what makes him make those decisions. So talk to us. I was gonna say I want to talk a little bit about your publishing, but I also kind of, as we're in this, same lane of the book, just talking about that moment and kind of building from there as you kind of walk this line with this character and how he's jumping from time periods because like you're talking about this happens right here in 16 but then it has something to do in 2023. So when you're writing that character, how are you kind of focusing on here's what happened in this 16 and this is why they're making these decisions in 2023. So just kind of talk about that time jump.
I didn't just the full. I didn't want to leave any stone unturned. There, I didn't want it to be like there would be. Why do you do? Nope. You're gonna know why he does everything that he does and why he is the way that he is. And I felt like those moments are earned because they give you insight. So none of those moments that you get with him are for nothing. There's no fat, there's no filler. Those moments happen because you need to know them in order to keep understanding where he's going. So when I did that, I had to find a way to be like, okay, how do I quickly take you back and bring you right back forward, but not linger too long
Yeah.
where it disrupts the the natural progression of the story.
Gotcha. And to that point, because the way the book moves, it does have a cinematic feel to it. Is your background in movies? Because you're talking about Save the Cat. That's a very, specific film kind of book. So I'm curious to how I guess, is your background when it comes to writing, has it always been like, oh, I like films, or do you like books? Or how'd you get there as a writer?
Now I'm not a doctor. I just play one on TV. But I love movies, man. I'm always watching them. I think the idea, the seed of it probably came when I started to watch New York Undercover,
Or-
and then when I seen the first Bad Boys. Memories of those, because remember, both of those detectives in each one of the TV show and the movie, they were people of color. And I had never seen that before, and they happened one after the other.
Hmm.
And then at some point when I was in my writing journey, I was like, yeah, I need that. I need both of my detectives to be people of color, two black males that deal with like real life like stuff. And that's kind of where that was kind of the genesis of the like buddy cop kind of feel.
Yeah.
I don't have any background in movies other than the fact that I love action like cop movies like Beverly Hills Cop and stuff like that. That's all.
Yeah, because there's a part in the book where Armstrong makes a decision that I don't think any cop would have made unless you've dealt with, in this inner city where you're like, nah, I'm gonna handle this myself, right? I don't think a suburban cop's gonna be like, yeah, let me handle this myself, right?
No,
It's just interesting. I was like, to your point when you're talking about that, I was like, that's definitely a strategic decision right there that, you gotta, because I've seen that in Bad Boys, right? Like that's kind of how it works in those films. So it was just interesting. And speaking to that, when you see this book as it kind of moves around, do you see it from a movie standpoint? And if you did, like, who would you kind of want, in some of those roles as an actor or anything like that?
we were just talking about this. So in my head, right, the detectives would be Aaron Pierre, and I'm always messing his name up. It's M'Baku from Black Panther.
Oh yeah, Winston Duke.
Winston Duke. Thank you. Winston Duke, right? So them two, and I could not figure out who would play Discipline. I was like, I had no idea. Then somebody said John David Washington. And that's the same thing I said. I was like, you might you, you might be the voice, literally his voice. And I'm like, that you might be onto something there. But I could never like, and I said, not that like if I got a movie, of course I would be ecstatic, but I want like a 6 to 8 episode Apple Plus streaming series type of thing. That would be the the mountaintop for me. I would
That,
love that.
that makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about your publishing process. Was your first book traditionally published, and or is this how did you kind of navigate that space for writers that want to figure out what their best decision might be? It's like talk to us about that experience for you.
So I've done like pretty much every iteration of publishing that you can do. I had a publishing company before,
Okay.
a small one. I self-published, had the traditionally published, and it's a lot. It's a lot to self-publish. It's a lot to have visibility, right? And like just platforms like this, I didn't have the privilege of being a part of in the past. So this is cool for me to even be doing this right now. And when I want to get an agent, I was like everybody else. I want to try to get the accolades. I want to try to get uh, worldwide distribution, right? I didn't think I could get those things on my own. So I felt like if I could get assistance, that's where the traditional publishing thing comes in. And I got the first deal with Redemption and Loss. I submitted my second book, but they passed. So that's how I got to my new publisher. And I just felt like I needed that machine if it could help me. And so far it has. People would ask me, how's my day going? And all I say is, bro, I got an audio book. I'm good. Like
Right.
I, I'm ain't nothing, but they couldn't be bad if it tried. So I have nothing but great things to say about my current publisher.
No, I love to hear. How's the marketing been? I've always, it's always interesting to hear how authors think about marketing their books, getting it out there. So talk to us a little bit how you've been approaching that part of the book.
I don't know if you I don't know how often you see me on threads,
Oh yeah,
but
all the time. That's how I learned about you. Yeah, honestly, that's how I learned about you.
I joke a lot about hating marketing. I don't hate marketing. I wanted to be a marketing executive, and with um, when I first started, I could not figure out how to differentiate myself from the pack. Because one fundamental question that any author has to ask is, why you? Meaning, why me? Why would somebody stop and watch what I'm doing? I have to figure out how to make a neon light over my head, right? Like, how do I get the arrow to point to me? And threads help me just be Marc Avery, right? And be cool with being that. Like, that's okay. I'm not a dancer. I'm not a cameraman. I'm not a lemonade stand operator, a trapeze artist, none of that stuff. I like what I like. So somebody said, "You a nerd?" I'm like, maybe, I don't know. Like that's if that's what you get out of this, then that's great. But I just feel like how do I fundamentally get people every day I gotta figure out a way to tell people that, hello, I'm Marc Avery, and this is what I'm doing without hitting you over the head and saying, just hey, see this book, just buy the book. Because just buy the book don't work. I'll just be completely honest. Just buy the book. It's not 1997. Nobody's going to listen to that. They're going to listen to authenticity, right? Just being okay with being you.
Yep.
I had to I had to set up this tour. Like I had to like my day long as hell. It might seem like I'm always online, but scheduling is great, right? Because I have to answer 45 emails. I have to make 27 phone calls. Me, Marquise, like I can't, like I don't got no assistant. My assistant is me. Like the marketing thing is just like, how do I make my message digestible enough
Yep.
for people to be interested in me?
Now I
I have
make
to figure that out every day.
No, yeah. So on our Creators Talk podcast, we talk about that all the time. It's like what's most personal is most general, right? The ability to show yourself and have those conversations and talk about your values. I mean, for brands it's different, but for creators is being authentic and showing because when I see your messages, I'm sitting there like, oh, this guy got a lot of, he's got charisma. He's talking about stuff. It's joking. It's half, and then all of it. So by the time the book came out, I was already interested in getting the book, right? And I think sometimes when it comes to building community, you don't always know what's going to click, or at least when I say content, I shouldn't say community, but when you're building content, you don't always know what's going to click. But it's sometimes it's all of it, right? It's the consistency that people start to appreciate. The showing up every day and getting a nugget of wisdom, or a laughter here and there, and then they say, okay, I want to see what this person's up to, and then they see your catalog and they're like, oh, this person's been dope, like they've been doing it for a long period of time. So I think about that a lot when I look at content creators and authors and anybody in these spaces, like what are they doing correctly? And I see that with your marketing, you've done a lot, and I think a lot of authors can learn from what you've done. So that's why I was asking.
No, I appreciate that, man. My superpower is I won't quit, man. Like I seen some stuff. I seen stuff before. I travel far and wide. I tell a story all the time. I took a van, man. Me and it was me, um, my fiance at the time. She's my wife. She's my wife now. And a couple of my author friends. We went down to Washington D.C. Man. I went over there and sold one book, bro.
Wow.
Their drive was 2 hours. I was salty coming back. I'm not gonna lie. We had a drive through ordering. Like I ain't hungry, man. I sold one book, and I was, I said, "No, nah, man, I'm grateful because whoever that person is, wherever they are, I'm just like they took a shot. They took a shot in the dark, and I just learned bookstore etiquette. Like funny story, funny quick story. I'm doing a book signing in Philly on July 12th
Okay.
at the Barnes and Noble that used to be next door to the job that I used to work at.
Okay.
For redemption loss, I want to go try to do a book signing. So I go to the guy's office and I say, hey, I wanted to see if I could possibly do a signing here. Okay, let's go look at the schedule. We look at the schedule. I'm like, okay, let's do these 2 dates. He's like, oh man, I don't know. Somebody got those 2 dates. I said, maybe I could be a moderator or maybe go on before them. Somehow just get me in the building. Let me just try. So he goes up there and he pulls the schedule up. It's Kevin Hart and Hall and Oates. And I said, man, they not letting me get on the book signing with neither one of them. I said, this is whack. So to that store closed, and it went from Rittenhouse to 17th and Chestnut. So to be able to solo sign there now is great because I might not even been ready at that time.
Mm.
And now it comes full circle where I can do this. It's set in Philly. I feel like Philadelphia is a character in this book, and I think it's going to be such like an incredible time. So
No, that's a good point. And then we talk about it a lot on this podcast, but talk to us about how you personally define community. What does strong community look like for you, especially as a writer? And when we talk about connecting with your audience and your community, how do you think about that?
I just to be 100% transparent, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what does it mean to like have a community or like to show up, right? Because I feel like people have rallied around, right, in ways that are severely humbling. But somebody we don't know each other and they reach out to me and say, "Hey, look, this is an incredible story. I'm blown away," or that I didn't know you might have done X, Y, and Z, and that somebody said that I inspired them, and I didn't even know what to say because I wasn't ready for that sort of. So the community, I feel like, is just how can I feel like I'm in service of people. How can I'm always like, what can I do, whether that is helping you reach out to somebody, talking about my past, being an example that shows you if I can do it, you can do it, and just kind of building that like camaraderie amongst not just readers but also content creators, other authors, and just being amongst the people, because anything you see on social media that an author has had like they have some sort of like these down moments, or they don't know if they want to continue on, or like what is going on with my book, why is nobody paying attention. I know every single feeling that there's nothing you can If you go search on threads right now and it'd be like blank, I have dealt with that. I sold one book before the book signing. I sold zero books at before the book signing, and I sold two cases of books before the book signing. I've had every variation of the kaleidoscope, if you will. So I understand like community just means being of service to people, in my opinion.
No, I love that. And when you were talking, it made me think of that Nipsey Hussle when he's talking and he's just like, I went through every emotion. He's like, I went through every emotion.
Everyone,
I just didn't quit. You know, it's the only difference that made me different than anybody else that's gonna go through this or has been through this is that I just didn't quit. I put my foot, like step by step, I got ahead. Every day I just continue to work on it. So yeah, talk to us a little bit about just your writing process and what is a perfect writing day for you.
I think I'm still trying to find what a perfect writing day looks like. But I think sometimes if I can just have maybe like 1 hour where my phone is on airplane mode, I listen to the same CD. I listen to the same album when I write. It's Tamia herself title album,
Okay.
and I'm not really paying attention because I know the album front and back. If I ever met her, I would be like, "Thank you, Tamia. I love you." But I but I just listen to that album. It can play because I know the words, so I'm not really listening. It's like white noise. And if I could just have like 1 hour to like just outline or add something new, I think that's like the perfect writing for me.
Yeah, that, to me, a mix of crime is I didn't, crime fiction. I ain't
Yeah,
expect
be playing, and
that.
I'm boom. It's the perfect white noise.
Sounds good. So as we kind of wrap up, what would you like to see more of in the book world?
Authors understanding that they have the talent to do whatever they want to achieve. It doesn't have like you are already creating the thing. And don't be afraid to like reach out to people.
Yep.
I think all the greatest things that I've done were as a result of reaching out to somebody. Like the biggest magazine in my state is Delaware Today.
Okay.
I sat in this lady's inbox for 2 weeks with the message written, but wouldn't press send because I was scared, bro. I said, man, she's not paying attention to me. Why would she respond? So I said, so one day, remember, it's just sitting there. I just opened it up and pressed send and closed it. It's already done. I can't do nothing. And she responded and said, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna call you on this day. We'll do the phone interview and I'm gonna put it up on the site. What if I never said anything? You have to just throw fear out the window because it's either going to be yes or it's going to be no. And if it's no, I'm no better. I'm no worse than I was before I got the yes.
Yep.
So we got to go. You got to know. You got to know what it is before it even happens.
No, that's a
You have to
word.
do that.
No, so that's definitely a word. I think we talk about that a lot too. I always think about it from a basketball standpoint. It's like you got to put 1,000 jumpers up, right? Every time you got to go to the gym and you're gonna shoot it. You're not gonna always make. You're not gonna always be like Curry where you hit 100 straight. But there's gonna be some days like you put up 1,000 jumpers. Some of them are gonna go in, and then those some. Then you get another 10, right? And then those people help the next. It's like that's how this thing works. So I love that you said that. I think that's such an important thing for writers and creatives and artists to always think about like never stop putting up them jumpers because you have no clue where they land. So that's definitely what would you like to see less of in the book world?
Sabotage, like less. Don't sabotage yourself with self. Don't sabotage yourself with self doubt. Right. So what I mean is, I had this idea to like you're gonna keep hearing me say this word, right? I need visibility, right? And I'm not comparing myself to this person, but last week when I was at my book signing, I walked into the store. Stephen King had his own table. He was on news and noteworthy section, and he was directly behind the cashier. That's 3 times. I'm not counting where he would be in his section. That was 3 times I mentioned him, right?
Yep.
He's in 4 sections, right? There's nowhere that you can walk in the store where you wouldn't see a display. That's visibility, right? I know what his cover looks like. Never flinch. It's gray. Person is blindfolded. Stencil calligraphy because I saw it 50 times. I need to keep being seen, right? So how can I be seen? By being seen. I said, I'm going to be on tour for 18 straight months, how Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson used to do it, right? That's probably sound crazy to a normal person. I am probably 35% to my goal. I'm booked for July. I'm booked for August. I'm booked for October. I don't have room to play around.
Yep.
I have to keep I have to come up every single day. Tonight, I have to come up with a way to say, my name is Marc Avery, and I write crime fiction. Because I don't know what I do know is somebody has not seen any of my posts, and they don't know what I do or who I am. That's what keeps me coming up with posts because I have to be seen in order to be read. That's all I think about.
No, that's a great word. And there's so much there, and I'm glad that we're having these conversations because this is what really it's about, right? I think sometimes when we see the author at the end point a lot of time as consumers, right? We see the book on the stage. Yeah, I mean on the shelves. We see the book and them talking about it on a stage, right? There's so many of those moments where we as a consumer just expect it to be there, right? But we don't see the people behind it because it's not always just the author. It's a team. If it's especially when you're doing traditional publishing, there's a team that's doing the helping with the market. There's people that are doing the line editing. There's editors that are doing all this. It takes a team to really put this piece of art into the world, and we as the readers get the privilege of reading it. And so a lot of times it is it is a lot of times these authors having to, do the marketing so that we can, as the consumer, see the book and appreciate it and get it out there. So I just want to say, Mark, thank you so much for you're doing all the work. I really do appreciate you. And as we always end this podcast, you can answer it however you want, but what should be in a writer's toolkit?
A person to talk to during the writing process, when you go through stuff, whether it's a high, medium, or low, you need somebody to speak to. Another writer, somebody that understands what you're going through. And I say that from experience because in the beginning, I didn't really have a person to bounce ideas off of. Um, but I think just to be self-aware of where you are in your journey, do your research, and don't be afraid to reach out to somebody because you don't know what that leap of faith could turn into, and it could just propel you to somewhere you never thought you would go.
Yeah, I love to hear it. Mark, let us know what's coming up in your world. Obviously, the book. Make sure everybody go get your copy of Discipline. But let us also know where we can find you on the internet and where just let us know about what we need to do.
So I'm on Instagram and I'm probably mostly on Threads. And right now I'm working on it's not a direct sequel, but it is the next book in the series. I'm working on that, and then I'm also working on another small project and add more tour dates.
All right, good. I love to hear it. Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, this book definitely got it. It seemed like it has all the makings for a sequel. So I was like, I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I'm glad
Right.
we got to know that. So no, Mark, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Truly appreciate you, man.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you, man.